How Andrew Carnegie became wealthy. From Bobbin Boy to Billionaire. What do you get when you mix a Scottish weaver's son, a telegraph wire, a steel empire, and a guilt-ridden billionaire with a library obsession? But how did this Bobbin Boy, earning $1.20 a week and dodging cotton fluff like it was shrapnel, become the richest man in the world? What made him turn from capitalist titan to philanthropic messiah, building libraries, universities, and peace foundations like he was trying to buy a stairway to heaven? And what regrets haunted him in his final days as he lay in a Massachusetts mansion, whispering about a handshake that never happened? This is not just the story of Andrew Carnegie. It's the story of ambition, betrayal, redemption, and the steel nerves it takes to shape a nation. So grab your monocle, pour some tea, and prepare to be riveted. Because once you leap into the loom and the leap, there's no turning back. Dunfermline, Scotland, November 25, 1835. Picture a stone cottage so cramped you could stir porridge and slap your brother at the same time. No plumbing, no electricity, and certainly no silver spoons. This was the birthplace of Andrew Carnegie, the second son of William Carnegie, a handloom weaver, and Margaret Morrison Carnegie, a woman whose spine was made of iron long before her son ever forged any. William's weaving was once a noble craft. He made damask linens with pride. But then came the Industrial Revolution, and with it, steam-powered looms that could churn out fabric faster than any human hand. William's trade was crushed under the gears of progress. He became unemployed, disillusioned, and increasingly dependent on Margaret's resourcefulness. Margaret, however, was no passive housewife. She sold pies, mended clothes, and even pawned family heirlooms to keep food on the table. She was sharp, proud, and utterly unwilling to let her family sink. When the economic tides turned against them, she made the boldest decision of her life: emigrate to America. Spring, 1848. The Carnegies boarded the Wiscasset, a creaky, wind-battered ship bound for Allegheny, Pennsylvania. Andrew, age 13, was seasick, terrified, and clinging to his mother's skirts like a barnacle. But even then, he was observant. He watched the crew, studied the stars, and absorbed everything like a sponge in salt water. They arrived in Allegheny with little more than hope and a few coins. The American dream didn't roll out a red carpet. It handed Andrew a broom. Andrew's first job was in a cotton factory, earning $1.20 per week. He worked 12-hour shifts dodging whirring machinery and inhaling lint like it was oxygen. But he had one secret weapon: his brain. He read everything he could get his hands on. Thanks to Colonel James Anderson, who opened his personal library to working boys, Andrew devoured books on history, economics, philosophy, and poetry. He later said, "That library was my university." By 1850, Carnegie landed a job as a telegraph messenger. He memorized Pittsburgh's street map and could decode Morse code faster than most operators. His speed and smarts caught the eye of Thomas A. Scott, a rising executive at the Pennsylvania Railroad. Scott took Carnegie under his wing, and by 1853, Andrew was his personal secretary and telegraph operator. This was no ordinary mentorship. It was a masterclass in capitalism. Scott taught Carnegie to invest early, reinvest aggressively, and never fear risk. During the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, Carnegie managed military rail transport, coordinating troop and supply movements with precision. It was here he learned the value of logistics, leadership, and steel. After the war, Carnegie began investing in ironworks, oil fields, railroads, bridges. His first major triumph? The Keystone Bridge Company, which replaced wooden bridges with iron, stronger, safer, and more profitable. Then came Union Iron Mills, and finally in 1892, the crown jewel, Carnegie Steel Company. By 1901, Carnegie's steel empire was unmatched. Enter J.P. Morgan, the financial colossus of Wall Street. Morgan wanted to consolidate the steel industry and offered Carnegie $480 million for his company, roughly $372 billion today. Carnegie accepted. Why? He was tired of the grind, haunted by labor disputes, like the Homestead Strike of 1892, and increasingly drawn to philanthropy and writing. He said, "The amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol is more debasing than the worship of money." Morgan merged Carnegie Steel into U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar corporation. Carnegie, now the richest man alive, retired to Skibo Castle in Scotland, where he wrote essays, traveled the world, and gave away his fortune. Summer, 1892. Homestead, Pennsylvania. The air was thick with soot and tension. Carnegie Steel's Homestead plant, one of the most productive steel mills in the world, had become a pressure cooker of resentment. The workers, members of the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers, were fed up. Brutal hours, dangerous conditions, and now wage cuts. Frick, the company's chairman, wanted to break the union. The workers wanted dignity. Carnegie? He was thousands of miles away, sipping tea and playing the organ at Skibo Castle in Scotland. He'd left Henry Clay Frick in charge, a man whose idea of diplomacy was a locked gate and a loaded gun. Frick, determined to crush the union, locked out the workers and built a 10-foot-high fence around the plant, complete with barbed wire and sniper towers. He then hired Pinkerton agents, private mercenaries with rifles and clubs, to retake the mill. July 6, 1892. The Pinkertons arrived by barge on the Monongahela River. Workers met them with fists, bricks, and bullets. The battle raged for hours. 10 men died, dozens were wounded, and the town of Homestead became a war zone. Frick, unshaken, refused to negotiate, but fate had other plans. July 23, 1892. Pittsburgh. Enter Alexander Berkman, a Russian-born anarchist with a pistol, a dagger, and a vendetta. He believed killing Frick would ignite a workers' revolution. He burst into Frick's office, shot him twice, and stabbed him 3 times. Frick didn't die. In fact, he finished dictating a letter before collapsing. Carnegie, upon hearing the news, was devastated, not just by the violence, but by the optics. The world saw his empire as a machine of oppression. His reputation plummeted. "I should have stayed," Carnegie later confessed. "It was a mistake to leave Frick in charge." But Carnegie wasn't just a steel baron. He was a man of contradictions, a ruthless capitalist with a poetic soul. 3 years earlier, in 1889, he had published The Gospel of Wealth, a manifesto that declared, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." He believed the wealthy had a moral obligation to give back. After Homestead, this belief became his mission. Carnegie opened the floodgates of generosity. His money flowed into 2,509 public libraries across the US, UK, Canada, and beyond. He believed access to knowledge was the key to social mobility. Carnegie Hall, 1891, a sanctuary for music and culture in New York City. Carnegie Technical Schools, 1900, which evolved into Carnegie Mellon University, a powerhouse of innovation. Carnegie Institution for Science, funding research in astronomy, biology, and physics. Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, his attempt to prevent future wars. By the time he died, he had given away $350 million, over 90% of his fortune. That's the equivalent of billions today, all aimed at uplifting humanity. In 1887, Carnegie married Louise Whitfield, a woman 21 years his junior. They had one daughter, Margaret Carnegie Miller, born in 1897. Carnegie was a devoted father but refused to spoil his child. He believed inherited wealth was a curse. But one regret lingered. Frick, their friendship, once strong, had crumbled after Homestead. Carnegie tried to reconcile, but Frick refused. In 1919, Frick died. Carnegie, heartbroken, said, "I would have liked to shake his hand once more." August 11, 1919, Lenox, Massachusetts. Carnegie died of pneumonia at age 83. His tombstone reads, "Here lies a man who knew how to enlist in his service better men than himself." A fitting epitaph for a man who built empires not just of steel, but of ideas. Andrew Carnegie was a paradox wrapped in a top hat. He was a ruthless capitalist who crushed unions, a visionary philanthropist who built libraries, a man who made billions, then spent his final years trying to give it all away. He once said, "No man becomes rich unless he enriches others." And while the Gilded Age was littered with robber barons, Carnegie stood apart, not just for how he made his fortune, but for how he gave it away. If you enjoyed this forensic dive into fame, fortune, and the fiery feuds that shaped history, don't forget to hit that follow button, smash subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another tale of the great men, the strange lawsuits, and the digital duels that define our world. Next up, Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore who turned steam into gold. Stay tuned.